Hey guys. Welcome to tonight's class. Tonight we're going to be discussing the middleman strategy. So I will give you guys a few minutes to hop on. Say hey in the chat so I can know who's here. Hi, Hiawatha. I think I got it right this time. I've been practicing. Okay. They ask for your UEI number to make it for small. They're gonna set it aside. Is that what you're saying? What's the set aside on it right now? Okay. Okay, it said total small business. So they wanted you to give them you give them your UEI so they can set it aside. I think I'm confused. If it's total small business, it's already small business. Are they trying to reclassify it? Okay. So what did you? Yes, she said so they could do market research. So it must be a source of salt then. It's not a pre-solicitation. Can you send it to me? I would love to look at it. And then that way I can give you a more accurate response. But let's go ahead and get started. I'm actually very excited to speak about tonight's topic, only because every person that I've talked to thus far is pretty much has at some point mentioned this strategy during our call. So I felt like I owed you guys some type of or some level of information and knowledge for you to be able to have so that you guys can make wise decisions. Okay. So I'm going to write that ID down, and then I'll take a look at it. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is, what is the middleman strategy? So I did some digging, y'all, because I told y'all before, I'm not used to this term. We don't use this term, not in my community. And in my community is, government contractors who have been doing this for years. So we actually don't use this term. So I had to go do some digging to try to figure out exactly what they were saying. Hey, Sharon, can you guys see me okay? I really don't want to turn the light on, but if it's too dark, let me know, okay? But so I did some digging, I read the FAR, and I got some information for y'all. So the middleman strategy is, from my research, is this idea. Thank you, Sharon. It's basically this partnership that is created between a government contractor and the government, and the government contract and the government, and then a sub. So basically, you find a contract that you want to do, and then you find a subcontractor to provide the service, and then that's it. Once you connect, so you're acting like a broker. Once you connect that subcontractor to the government, then now you're pretty much done. Is that correct? Are we all, in agreement that that's the general idea of behind this whole middleman strategy? Y'all let me know in the comments. I just want to make sure. Okay. So if that's the case, I know I've mentioned before that is not something that the government, basically, yes, that's not something that the government uses. Now, the idea behind the strategy is somewhat correct. However, the perversion in the whole strategy is leaving out the limitations, the rules and the regulations that is required of you as a government contractor to make sure that you stay compliant. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So the middleman strategy, as I said before, is not a government use term. This is not a term that the government uses. You're never going to hear a contracting officer say middleman strategy. You're never going to see in a government contract the terms middleman strategy, at least unless they change the regulation or added to it later. At this present moment and in previous years, since the FAR has been established and enforced, they have never used these terms. So it's not a government use term. And I don't want you guys, my people, I don't want y'all using those types of terms. I want you guys to be educated. It sounds, in my opinion, it sounds real scamish. And that's my opinion. Nobody can take that away from me. It just does. It sounds like trying to scam the government. But anywho, I digress. So I want to give you guys some example of the middleman strategy is a thing. However, I'm going to give you some real examples of what that actually looks like. So that could be a wholesaler. That could be a distributor. That could be a retailer. It could be a broker. It could be an agent. The middleman, the primary role of a middleman is to connect producers with consumers, whether it be a service or goods, but you're connecting that product. It's almost like a one-time transaction as the middleman. That's not the case with government contracting. If you're on that contract, you are on that contract to perform. You're not just on there to connect dots. Okay. So I don't want you to be hesitant, Sharon, about going the route. I believe that with the right information, you can make the right decisions. So it's not that it's not successful, because if it wasn't successful, they wouldn't have these regulations in here. But we just want to make sure that we all stay compliant, because we definitely don't need the government coming after us, and we definitely don't want to be on American greed. Okay, so those are some examples of the middleman. The correct term that is actually used, and you can find this in the FAR, and I know you guys heard me say it before, but the correct term that we use is subcontracting. You have a prime contractor, and then you have a subcontractor, okay? So, excuse me. I am now going to go into I want to talk about the set-aside categories for subcontracting. So as I mentioned, you have prime contract, you are the prime contractor, and your goal is to provide the service for the government. You're going to vet your subcontractor, and I told you guys, we went over how you can properly vet a subcontractor, but you really just want to make sure that you find someone who's qualified, they're reliable, and I was trying to find I thought I had another. You want to find someone who's reliable, who's qualified, because you don't want to just get some random that provides the service, and then you're giving them so much responsibility that you will be held accountable for. So it's important to properly vet your subcontractor. Don't just go and just get a family friend just because you've seen them do work. You put them through the same process that you would put any random person that you've met off the street through. I don't care if it's their family. I don't. So some of the set-asides that have subcontracting limitations is really all of them, to be honest. So I'm going to go through each one. So you have the total small business set-aside. You have woman-owned, service disabled, veteran-owned. You have HUBZone, economically disadvantaged, Indian, tribal, we ain't talking about them. These are the top 5 that are mostly used. And so with these set-asides, all of them have a max of 50%. It says that the prime contractor on the federal contracts must perform at least 50% of the labor cost incurred for contract performance with its own employees. That's under total small business set aside. Prime contractor on federal contracts set aside for total small businesses must perform at least 50% of the labor costs incurred for contract performance with its own employees. Woman-owned says that the prime contractor must perform at least 50% of the labor costs with its own employees, or subcontract a greater portion to other woman-owned small businesses. So you can't even sub, if you're using a woman-owned set aside, you can't sub it out to no other business but a woman-owned small business. The service disabled veteran is pretty much the same as well. It's the exact same as woman-owned. If you sub it out, it has to be subbed out to another veteran. HUBZone, the prime contractor must ensure that at least 50% of the cost of the contract performance is incurred for personnel is expended on employees of the concern or employees of another HUBZone small business owner. The reason that they're doing this is so that they can make sure that they keep a significant portion of the work underneath these set-asides. It's really for our benefits. Can you imagine another company, like a large corporation, coming in, starting a small business, getting qualified underneath set-aside, and then now they just passing out contracts just everywhere, and we're not even able to compete? Can you imagine? That would be horrible. So, I understand why the need to manage, the contracts so that they can make sure that they stay competitive and things like that. So now that we've gone over that, do you guys have any questions before I move on? Now that we know that most of them have a max of 50%, that's the max. Do we have any questions? Let's see. I'm gonna answer that question for you, Sharon. Sharon said, so Jess, how does one do that accurately if you live in one state as the prime and the subcontractor lives in another state? We're gonna get to that. Okay, so I wanted to give you guys the FAR as well so that you can just go read it at your own leisure. So I do have those for each under each set aside. We'll go over that last though, if we make it through. So you're asking me, Sharon, about how to stay compliant. We'll go over that. Let's go over the subcontractor duties, some things that you can actually sub out. Okay, so these are categories that you can, these are areas that you can actually sub out. You can sub out your labor costs, so like wages, salaries, benefits. You can sub out materials and supplies. That's self-explanatory. There's subcontractor costs. So if you payments that are made to subcontractors for performing specific tasks or providing specific goods or services, travel expenses, equipment costs, overhead costs, facility costs, training costs, quality control costs, legal and compliance costs. Those are some of the costs of contract performance that would be included inside of, or could be included in a subcontracting agreement. Now, your responsibility as a prime, remember I said you don't give 100% to your subcontractor. You are still liable and responsible for performing certain duties. So some of the duties that you could manage, for example, Sharon, let's say that you're subbing out a portion of the work and you're subbing out the labor costs, or you're subbing out materials and supplies because they're going to perform it in another state for you. Where you can stay compliant is you could, as the prime contractor, could be responsible for project management. So you could be coordinating activities for your sub, all of the activities that have to be completed underneath the contract for your sub. You could manage timelines. You could manage cost, make sure that you're making sure that the contract stays within budget. You will also be responsible for contract administration. You would be the administrator of the contract, which means you would be the face. So there's not a put together and then I take a back seat. You will always be the point of contact that they reach out to. So that would be including all the communication with the contracting officer. If there's reports that are required, you have to make sure that those reports are required. And that would include staying in constant contact with your sub, making sure that if there's any reports that they need to provide, that they're submitted them to you in a timely manner so that you can give them to the CO, as well as making sure that you're staying compliant within the terms of the contracts. Some contracts require contract deliverables. So you would be the primary responsible point of contact who would make sure that those deliverables are taken care of. Okay. You could also do quality assurance. So in some contracts, they require like QCPs, like quality control plans. And basically in those plans, you're outlining your intentions to properly manage that contract. And sometimes I think most times actually, they have to be approved by the contracting officer. But it just basically makes sure that the work gets done. And even if there's a portion that's being outsourced out, you want to cover that in your QCP plan as well. You could do technical oversight, which is basically acting as an oversight for your sub, providing any guidance. You would be the point of contact if there's any conflict. You would be the one that resolved those conflicts between your sub and the government. And again, that's why having a strong partnership with their subcontractor is extremely important, because if indeed there is someone that's performing the work in another state for you, there has to be a level of comfort and trust so that to make sure that they are communicating with you what's happening on the grounds, and so that you can make sure that overall the contract is being covered and you guys are still performing, as expected. As a prime contractor, you also identify and manage any risk, even if it's, especially if it's including your subcontractor performance. So let's say you have a subcontractor that's not performing well. You need to manage those risks and keep an eye on it. And you may even need to start looking for another sub that can provide the same service in case you need to change out. Like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If it's someone that you're newly forming a partnership with, you definitely still need to make sure that you have a backup plan, because ultimately, again, performance-wise, you're still being held accountable. Yeah, they're going to perform it on your behalf, but the government is still going to look for you to provide that service, because the partnership is between them and you ultimately. And there's some things that they could do to or they could expect from the subcontractor, but ultimately it's coming from you. All right. Customer interface, we already talked about being a primary point of contact for the contract. They're going to be, as a prime contractor, you will handle the finances. So you'll have to make sure that you guys stay within budget. You would have to manage the invoicing. So if there are particular, like we discussed in the last class, there are particular payment platforms that the government may use. The prime contractor is responsible for making sure that the company is enrolled in those programs and then ready to be able to submit invoices on time, because there's invoice frequency schedules inside of these contracts. And so if they say the invoice needs to be submitted on the 20th of each month, you need to make sure that it's submitted on the 20th of each month, or that could potentially affect your KPIs, which is how they measure your performance. Invoices is a big one. Compliance and reporting, that's your responsibility as well. You have to make sure that you stay compliant. The government's not going to say, hey, you're not in compliance. They're not going to say that. You have to make sure that even if it's in another state, you make sure that you check state laws. Make sure that you're adhering to all of the laws that's in your state and where that service is being taken care of. And as well, the subcontracting limitations as well. And then you will have to manage any changes. So changes could be as small as the contract starts off with them needing $25,000 in services, and now they only need 13. Well, that's going to spark a change. So all a change is, you're going to hear this. They will say change, but they will most likely say a modification. That means the same thing. So if they need to complete a mod to basically change the contract total, the prime contractor would be responsible for executing that modification with the CO. It wouldn't be your sub. Let me answer this question. How would you get invoiced? How would you get invoiced? You would invoice the government, because I'm confused. Tell me what you mean by that. So yeah, going back to what I was saying about the modifications, this is pretty much, this justifies 50% of the work. No, Sharon, that's just not my business model. That doesn't mean that, I'm not open to it. However, we have an in-house service that we provide. So we haven't had to utilize a subcontractor partnership at this time. But I'm not against it. The opportunity is there. So if I ever if we ever decide to move in a direction where we would need to bring in an additional partner to support us in that way, I'm okay with that as long as we, adhere to these limitations. So we primarily, as a business, we go after contracts underneath the service disabled veteran owned. We use that certification. It's actually like one of the most powerful certifications that you can use, only because of the rules that are assigned to it. It basically says that if there are two veterans that are interested in a particular scope or a particular opportunity, if two veterans show interest, it automatically has to be set aside for that veteran. The issue is there's not a lot of veterans that are actually going after these procurement opportunities. So I say it's an issue because when we're bidding on things, sometimes it's only us, and other times it may be one or two people. At max, the most that I've seen in regards to proposals on solicitation opportunities is about 15 companies that, submitted on a particular opportunity. We just don't have a lot of vets in the industry that I'm seeing that are actually going after the work. That's the sad part. Okay, well, yes. Yes, that's correct. Hiawatha, that's correct. It's you would invoice the government in accordance to the contract terms, and then you would pay your sub. And there's a prompt payment, an accelerated payment for subcontractors. It's usually inside of solicitation documents as well. I think we saw it in the one that we looked at on Tuesday. So even with that, the government recognizes that, work does have to be subbed out. And so they even have regulations on paying your subcontractors on time. You can get in trouble if you don't pay your subcontractors on time. The subcontractor can go to your contracting officer and say, they haven't paid me, and that you can definitely get in trouble. Yeah. The government doesn't play about third parties not getting paid. No, they wouldn't have to be in the Seneca. Yeah, they wouldn't have to be in whatever that payment portal is. You would have to be in there. You would pay your subcontractor in whatever platform that you establish inside of your agreement. They don't have to be in that system. Yeah. So those are some responsibilities as a prime. Now I'm going to tell you guys how you can actually stay compliant, okay? So number one, you want to make sure that you understand the contract requirements, okay? That's simple. That means you need to go through your contract. This is now, I'm calling it a contract now because now you've been awarded, okay? So you need to go through that contract and review every contract term as it relates to your subcontracting limitations. If there's any questions that you have, you could use your Q&A time frame. Well, no, this is after the fact. Let me go back. If this is prior to you submitting a proposal and you're going the route of a subcontractor, then I want you guys to make sure that you understand all of the requirements on the limitations, the subcontracting limitations. If you have any questions, you can ask your contracting officer as it pertains to the scope of work. They're not going to give you advice on who you should choose or anything like that. They can't give you that type of advice. But if it is related to the scope of work in the solicitation, you can ask them specific questions in that way. Because you can only bill the government, Sharon, based on services and supplies received. So if they say that they need, we'll put this in terms of hours. If they say in the beginning they're going to need 1,200 hours of work, and turns out they only needed 600 hours, you can only bill for 600 hours. You can't bill them for 1,200 hours because you didn't perform any work. And it wouldn't necessarily be the subcontractor not needing the money. It would be based on the government needing the service or the supplies. Whatever your rate is that you negotiated with your subcontractor is what it is. It wouldn't involve the government. Even if you use a subcontractor, you go into a subcontracting plan, and I don't have the full list of what's included in it, but I don't presume that they're going to have you list your price, like what you and your subcontractor agree upon. The subcontracting plan is mainly to identify what the subcontractor is going to be doing, like the agreement. But you can, in any contract, you can only bill for services and supplies that were received and accepted by the government, unless otherwise specified. But on firm fixed contracts, which is most of the solicitations that we go after, those are an all-inclusive fixed rate that can be billed once they've received services. That's usually why you have to wait 30 days after. Hi, Miguel. Money up front as it relates to what? Your subcontractor? If you're talking about your subcontractor, that would be based on your agreement with your subcontractor. Yeah, because Unison is a marketplace platform. So if you were to bid on that type of platform, you would have to pay a percentage to Unison. To pay your subcontractors, that's going to depend on your agreement. Some subcontractors will allow 30, which will allow you to get paid from the government and then pay them. So it just depends on what payment terms you negotiate with your sub. But the government wouldn't be involved in that. They're going to only pay you. Okay. So another way that you guys can stay compliant is just pick reliable subcontractors, guys. Like, please do your due diligence. Remember, these people are representing your company. They're like, just do your due diligence. And you're welcome, Miguel. And make sure that they're qualified. So if they should have certain insurances. So for example, if you don't particularly offer that service, that doesn't mean that you are exempt from doing your due diligence. If it's a HVAC company and I don't provide services as an HVAC company, I'm going to look up what an HVAC company needs to have to be compliant. To be a qualified HVAC company, what do you need to have? So that I can have an idea of who's basically trying to get over on me and, not provide the proper information, or it'll help me basically distinguish on who's a professional and who's not. I don't want someone who's just doing it under the table and they're not established. They don't have a business. Like, that's what I mean by doing your due diligence, because they're going to have certain insurances in place to cover them, because you need to make sure that you have certain insurances in place to cover yourself. Because should anything happen, you will have to be, responsible. So selecting reliable subcontractors, make sure that you're executing written agreements. Please don't do word of mouth, guys. Please don't. Everything needs to be an agreement. And then let's say you're choosing a subcontractor and they need to go and complete a site visit. Make them sign an NDA and a non-compete before you release any information to them about the scope of work, especially if you're going after it and you have not been awarded. They need to sign an NDA. They need to sign a non-compete. Period. If they're not willing to do it, then keep it moving. We ain't begging. We're not begging. Okay. We're speaking it and it's happening. Okay. There's a difference. So make sure that you guys are getting that you're putting together even now, like written agreements, so that you're prepared when you do find that subcontractor. You can say, okay, here's our written agreement. And, this is what we're establishing, review it. If there's any questions, we can come back and, make any negotiations if need be. But go ahead and even start forming some written agreements together now. You can use Rocket Lawyer, and you can have them actually go over and review your agreement just to make sure that you're covering yourself, and you're also being fair to your subcontractor as well. You don't want a one-sided agreement, because who wants to go into partnership with a company or someone who's only thinking of themselves? So make sure that you keep it fair, and but you also make sure that you're covered and they are covered as well. All right. Your agreement should include terms, conditions, deliverables, payment terms, compliance requirements, and then any other provisions that are relevant based on that contract. You can get agreements through Rocket Lawyer. I believe LegalZoom has them as well. I typically, to be honest, I usually use Rocket Lawyer, and then I just kind of add to it based on my industry. I add provisions based on that. So we have standard provisions, and then if there's anything additional, then we add it based on whatever the scope is. And not necessarily, I don't use it on the government side, on the commercial side is what I'm saying. Okay. You want to make sure that you are monitoring your subcontractor's performance, guys. So that could be, you flying down wherever that may be just to kind of check in on them. You could do video calls with your subcontractor. You could require that they send you pictures if you can't get there. There's so many different ways that you can monitor it to make sure that you're keeping your eyes on the project and just monitoring it. But keeping an open communication really helps, because if any issues arise from that contract, you can go ahead and mitigate it before, it gets to that contracting officer. Always think, forward, like being proactive, thinking about every scenario that could happen, and then making sure that you can provide a plan to that. If you begin to think that way, when it happens, or if it should happen, you'll already be prepared. You won't be thrown off and startled by it. You'll already be prepared. Okay. It could also help too. Just a thought. If you're doing a contract that's not in your area, you could also consider maybe hiring a project lead in the area that would represent your company. And they could be used specifically for just monitoring the subcontractor while they're on site. They could be the person that they report to, and then they could, report back to you, because they'd be essentially working for working for your company on the contract. So that's another way that could help, kind of ease the anxiety around that. Let's see here. Yes, Sharon, I do. I include all costs. If I decide to, depending on how often I decide to travel there, what I would deem as necessarily required, then I would include that cost. Okay. Another way that you can stay compliant, we talked about this though, but that would be like tracking your subcontractors' activities. You could do that by using a project manager, or you could do that through reports. documentation. You can require certain documentation from your subcontractor. Yes, Sharon, all potential costs that is related to that performing underneath that contract. Also, you can provide oversight, guidance, support, training if it's needed, so that they can fully understand what their obligations are and make sure that you guys as a whole are compliant with, your contract terms. The goal is that you guys are all a team, so that the understanding is, we're all here to make sure that this works. You don't want anybody that's coming to sabotage you. Make sure that you are, if you're going to use a sub underneath these set-asides, you need to confirm that they meet the eligibility criteria for the set-aside. We already know woman-owned, it has to be another woman. Same as HUBZone, same as service-disabled veteran. And I think Total Small Business says they just have to be a small business. So that one's okay. But I think under a Total Small Business, I think they have to at least be registered with the SBA. But don't quote me on that. I'll have to follow up on that one. I'm gonna check on that requirement. I'm gonna read the FAR on that one. Okay. So yeah, if there is any areas that you guys are not compliant in, you want to address those immediately. And then also document any corrective actions that you've taken. Contracting officers will ask for that information. I have had to do corrective actions underneath my contract when it was dealing specifically with my employees. If there was an incident that took place while on the government site, then we had to provide them with a corrective action of, what we did to provide a solution to that issue. So those are things that you should be mindful of as well. And then conducting regular audits would help. So reviewing the subcontractor reports, all of the activity, and then you can identify from there any areas of improvements. You can talk that over with your subcontractor, making sure that you guys are improving in that area. And those are kind of like the high level ways that you can make sure that you stay compliant. But this will ensure that you guys are staying like that you have a successful partnership, not just for you and your subcontractor, but for you and the government. I haven't actually had to use any subcontractors at this point, Miguel. But if I had to, I would, depending on, the work, the scope, I would start with Google. And then I usually like to check to see if they're in SAM already. If they're not showing up in SAM, it doesn't mean they're not in SAM. Excuse me. It could mean that they're just not in the public search. Which have you all removed your company from the public search? Please tell me you did. It's if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a disclaimer. I think it's towards the end of the registration, and it's already selected. And it basically says like you authorize your business to be listed in the public search where they're showing like non-sensitive information. But when I looked at it, I was like, this is definitely sensitive information, because it's showing me, it's showing my name, it's showing my address. Sometimes, underneath the POC, it doesn't show a number unless you like put it in there. But that all of that is sensitive information. So, okay. Melanel Beauty. I can definitely help you with that. I don't know who that is though. Who's Melanel Beauty? Who is that? And Sharon, I know we had this conversation. Oh, Michelle. Hey, Michelle. Yes, I can help you with that tomorrow. Okay, please go in and edit it. Please, please. I know who it is, Michelle. Yes, Michelle, we're gonna do that tomorrow because yeah, it just we just don't want to do that, y'all. Okay. It's basically setting us up to get spam emails and scammed because I don't know if you guys haven't gotten them yet, but they send out emails and they're basically like, hey, your SAM registration is about to expire. You need to contact us. I think Hiawatha got one and was like, hey, what is this? And they literally will have their web browser as SAM registration something something something, but it's a .com. If it doesn't have a .gov at the end, it is not from the government. Yeah, they got you. They got you. And then they're gonna say, you just pay us like $300 and we'll help you get your registration together. No. No. You only have to renew your registration annually, and it's usually from the date that your registration was activated. It'll tell you. So all you need to do is simple. Put a calendar invite or a calendar event on your calendar that says on that maybe a few months before it's about to expire, and you go and you renew it. It's simple. You don't need any help to do that. Yes, I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have been getting a lot of spam because they will spam you. Yep, that's right. That's right, y'all. So please take it out of the public search because yeah. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so now y'all, I want to actually tell y'all about what can happen if you violate. I mean, I know you are assuming that it's all bad stuff. You're right. But I still want you guys to just know. So if you violate or anyone violates the subcontracting limitation based on the FAR, you are subject to your contract being terminated for default. Default is just basically saying that you fail to comply with the contract terms. And one of those contract terms is subcontracting limitations. Typically, if you are terminated for default, you could be liable for like damages, and they could potentially like disqualify you as a small business. They could debar you, they could suspend you, they could make you pay money, they could take legal actions. I mean, you could lose your small business status. It's just so many things, so many reasons why you want to make sure that this is important. The government knows that we're going to have to use subcontractors at some point. We're not jacks of all trades. We can't offer every service that they may need. So what they need, I mean, sorry, I was reading something else. This is the reason why there's subcontracting opportunities. They're not saying you can't subcontract out. They're just saying within these guidelines, this is what is allowed. So all you need to do is master the guidelines and you guys will be successful. That's it. That's it. This is not a middleman, get rich, make $1 million overnight, make $1 million in 6 months. It's not that, guys. If you master down this strategy, the true strategy, you will be successful in this. And you'll be successful knowing that you're compliant and you'll be at peace about it. You won't have to look over your shoulder like, dang, man, I did something that was really, I mean, maybe they'll let this slide. Yeah, they'll let it slide until they come and audit you. And then now they're looking at your contractor records and they like, wait a minute now. You didn't say you was doing so-and-so. So-and-so is not technically qualified underneath this set aside. And I think I said this on a call. Why do you think now that the government is requiring that your subcontractor gets a UEI number? Why do you think, y'all? It's not for fun. It's for tracking purposes. So let's just stay compliant. That's all. Okay. So I think that's all I have, guys. I really hope this was helpful. Sharon, did I answer your questions? I got a text to renew. No, girl, the government is not renewing you to the government is not texting you to renew your registration. That's spam. That's spam. The only thing they're gonna tell you is that it's up for renewal. And how, when did you get into Sam? When did your registration become active? Sharon. And the text had your cage, and girl, that's because you're in the public search. You're in the public search. Of course, I can pull you up right now. I'll be able to see your name, your address. If Social Security was required, I'll probably be able to see the last 4 at least. So yeah. But we're gonna fix that, right, Sharon? You're gonna get that fixed. So we won't have to worry about people harassing you about a registration. You got in November of last year? Or is that 2022? What? November of 2022? You haven't renewed? So you have not renewed? You didn't renew in November of 2023? Sharon, what's the name of your business? I wish I could bring y'all on these lives. Because these comments, they come in a little too slow for me. And I feel like I just be looking at the camera. What is the name of your, are you still active? You're still active? I was just finna say, but I was about to call you boo. I don't know about that, honey. Hold on, let me log into Sam, because you have to renew annually. So if you didn't do your renewal from last year and the last date that they have is November, then your registration is probably not active. Okay. Is that like Ruach, like the Ruach of God, like the breath of God? Is that the name of your business? Servants Ruach? Okay, hold on. I don't know if I can copy this. Look at you. Why you didn't tell me that during our session? You did not tell me that during the session. No. Sharon. Girl, they got you off of you. Wait a minute. Is this you, Servants Ruach Solutions, LLC? Oh, yeah. This is you. You're active. You're good to go. You are. No, you're active. You're active in here. It says Sharon, you just renewed. You renewed in January of this year. You're good to go. You just need to go in and go back in and deselect. Let me see if I can show you what I'm talking about. This is where I can see it right here. Oops. Well, you guys can see that. But do you see right here? This is called the SAM search authorization. It says I authorize my entity's non-sensitive information to be displayed in SAM public search. But they got everything on here. They got your address, they got your name, they got you listed as the owner. So yeah, I'm not going to show it on here, but yeah, you definitely need to deselect this clause. Okay. You don't remember renewing? Well, you renewed this year, so you don't have to go back and renew. They already once you renewed it in January, it just became active again. But you're supposed to renew it every year. Yeah, take care of that. We don't need you out here exposed. But yeah, that's it though, guys. Do you guys have any other questions, comments, concerns regarding tonight's lesson? They do have your bank account, Miguel. Did I sign out yet? I didn't see. I didn't see Sharon's though. But sometimes they'll show it's called the financial point of contact. They may list that. Let me see if Servants Ruach. They won't show your bank account number though. Yeah, definitely. I don't want y'all out here caught slipping. Because I'm telling you, I've already been through this. I already got. So I had a lender that was basically targeting small businesses. And yeah. I'm not going to say I ain't have the wisdom because I did. I'm just going to say I disobeyed God. So don't disobey God, okay? Period. Do what he said do, because I responded out of fear and went into this partnership with this lender, and they basically tried to steal my business. And so I spent the first year and a half, almost 2 years, fighting for my business in legal battles. Government conspired against my company to work with the lender because I had some inexperienced contracting officers who didn't know what they were doing. And so just learn from me, guys. The stuff that I'm telling you guys, like, I'm not just pulling this out of nowhere. Like, I do this. I know I said that before, but I really do this. And I've been through enough in the 4 years of being a government contractor to say, like, this is the way that you should go and this is what you should avoid. So I really hope that you guys are taking what I'm giving and you're like applying it, because it's one thing to get knowledge. It's another thing to apply it. That's wisdom. So I really hope that you guys are applying it and using it in your journey, because you're going to need it. You're welcome. You're welcome. That's what I'm here for. Yeah, Sharon, you can go in your workspace to edit it. Anything dealing with your business inside of SAM, you want to go to the workspace and you can update the record that way. All right. So I will see you guys next week. And if you don't have any other questions, thank you all for joining me tonight. I see that we have like 7 people online. That's the number of completion. So we're going to end on that. Y'all have a good night. Bye.